Welcome to TOSB Conversation Starters. As we approach International Women's Day, we are speaking to our inspiring experts shedding light on new ways to view gender, diversity, and inclusion. Today, we have with us Eika Chaturvedi Banerjee, who brings a lens of Indian history and mythology for a take on gender unlike any other. Eka believes that it's important to unlearn our ideas of gender and celebrate each human for their unique talents and capabilities. Now, how can this shape a new language for us to approach DEI at work? Let's find out. Welcome, Eka. It's a pleasure to have you with us, as always.
Thank you, Shreya, and it's always a pleasure to be here on the TOSB conversations. But you've already stolen my thunder. You have already announced to the world that we must go beyond gender on this. But let's proceed then.
I'm sure we want to hear more in depth from you. So, actually, let's dive straight into the mythological narratives. So, I'm very intrigued that, your concept, your perspective on this. So, what does Indian mythology say about gender?
So even before we come to gender, Shreya, it's important to understand, and I won't use the term mythology, but I will use the term Sanatan Dharma. I will talk about our scriptures, which and it's very interesting for us to know what the Sanatan Dharma stands for. So Sanatan Dharma, literally translated, Sanatan is unto forever, so forever relevant. And dharma, literally translated, is dhar, bearing, and me. So what I bear, what I uphold, my way of life. So literally translated, the Sanatan Dharma means the forever way of life. Now, why it is unto forever is not because it is forever absolute or cast in stone or text. It's actually forever because it is forever relevant. It is forever contextual. Now, anything that is forever relevant or forever contextual must therefore also derive from some very fundamental principles. So, one kind of law is the universal law, the cosmic order, what we call the Rita. And the Rita is, by the way, the first word of the Rig Veda. Rita means origin, it means seasons, it means cyclicity, it means the cosmic order. And there are some seven principles of the Rita. Fascinatingly, the concept of Rita has actually been originated in from ancient Egypt. So, just say we have Narad Muni, who is the messenger of God. In ancient Egypt, there was Tehuti, who was the messenger of God. And sage Tehuti used to had these seven principles, which were called the Tehutian laws by which the universe operates. Now, what do these seven principles talk about? They talk about things like the witness mind, the Sakshi Bhava. The universe is as you feel it in your mind. They talk about the principle of vibration, which the Rita calls the Spanda, which is about saying that everything has a frequency of vibration and has the energy of vibration. They talk about the principles of polarity, which has come to us in the context of what we call the Sankhya, the principle of duality. Now, why this principle of polarity? And then there's the principle of gender, which says that in order for the universe to exist, there must be procreation. And in order for procreation, there must be a male and there must be a female. And by the way, these universal laws apply not only to human beings, they're not human laws. They are laws that apply to the animal kingdom, they apply to the plant world, they apply to the universe at large. So if there's the principle of gender, say there's the male and the female principle, it is not just human beings where there are males and females that are needed in order for us to procreate and continue the universe. It's true for plant, it's true for animals. I mean, even within plants, there's a male plant and there's a female plant. If there is a flower that reproduces, that same flower has both the male stamen and it has the female style, right? So this principle of male and female is not a human principle, first of all. And that's the first thing it says about gender. The other thing that our ancient laws say about gender is that everything exists as in polarities and as a continuum. What that means is, supposing there's a quantity called temperature. Now, temperature has a whole range which is from absolute cold to absolute hot. And then there's a whole range of temperatures in between. Now, what you choose to call hot or cold is subjective. That's your perspective. But there is an absolute range of temperature and heat, right? Similarly, at some point of time, we say that if you go east and west, we look at directions. But the earth is round. The fact is that if you go far enough into the east, you eventually come to the west, right? So, even on gender, so for the quantity called gender, there is a whole continuum which has absolute male at one end, absolute female at the other end, and a whole range of gender expressions in between. And by the way, we've celebrated these. So I know in this in our current very new age world, we've come up with a whole range of gender expressions. So there's transgender, there's cisgender, there is unigender, there is bigender, there is gender fluidity. We think these are modern words, but these are ancient concepts. We've had these concepts in our scriptures forever and celebrated them. We've celebrated Arjun in the Mahabharata when he became a transvestite for a year when he needed to have his identity hidden and was Brihannala and was the dance teacher to the Princess Uttara of Virat. We've celebrated this expression in the coming together of Shiv and Parvati and becoming the Ardhanarishwar. We have celebrated this expression in the context of Vishnu. When Vishnu, at the time of the Amrit Manthan, when the churning of the ocean happened, and Vishnu transformed himself into Mohini so that he could give the nectar, give the Amrita to the Devas and keep the Daityas away from it. We've celebrated this expression when Vishnu became Mohini and he and Shiva together produced the child Ayappa, who's a revered god and deity. So we've had these expressions forever. We've acknowledged them, we've celebrated them, and we've accepted them as part of gender expressions. And this is, by the way, in the Vidhi ke Vidhan. This is the universal order. This is the cosmic order. This is the Rita. This exists whether or not humans exist. Now, the interesting aspect on gender and frankly where all our conflicts arise from is from what we call the human laws, Manushya ke Vidhan. Now, what are Manushya ke Vidhan? Manushya ke Vidhan are those laws that are specifically applicable to human beings and help create and preserve the societal order. So, marriage, career, structures, families, the rituals we do, these are all Manushya ke Vidhan. And they were created, so they haven't existed in nature or cosmos forever, but they've been created specifically to make sure there is some societal structure. Now, where that's the case, obviously the Manushya ke Vidhan also differ from differing societies. And therefore, our understanding of gender roles, our understanding of gender engagement, our understanding of gender in the human construct also varies from societies to different societies. Now, in our society, forever, now we are probably just rediscovering it, like frankly we're rediscovering everything that's ancient and celebrating it now. But in the Indian consciousness, Shreya, we've always celebrated both malehood, femalehood, and all the gender expressions in between. So that's what we are about gender.
This is a very interesting thought, Eka, and I want to go back to where you mentioned gender not being just one aspect. So, taking it forward to our corporate world, so do you think it's important to view gender as just one aspect of diversity in the workplace?
Yeah, like I said, in our understanding of ancient scriptures, Shreya, gender is just one expression of who we are as human beings. And again, in our understanding of who we are as human beings, there are two aspects to it. One aspect of it is who we are as by cosmic order, by our own existence, by our nature, by our birth, by our very existence of human beings. And the other aspect of that is, like I said, the manushya ke vidhan, that which we acquire as part of our nurture. Now, think about it. Shreya, you and I are both Indians. We've been born in this land. We are both females. We are both working professionals. We are both people who are right now conversing in this same language called English. But you and I are not the same person at all, Shreya. For all our similarities, we're already two different people. So the Vidhi ke Vidhan talk about diversity at three levels of our existence. These three levels of our existence are what we inherently are by birth, our three bodies. The three bodies we occupy is our physical body, the Sharira, the intellectual body, which is the intellects, the vivek or the buddhi or the sense of judgment, cognition, discretion, and our emotional bodies, which is the manas. In fact, Sri Chinmayanan very sweetly calls this the BMI, the body, the mind, and the intellect. This is who we are as our own individuals. So each of us, irrespective of our societal similarities, occupy this diversity of our body, which is how we physically look, our mind, which is how we feel, how our emotions, what our emotional state is, the filter, the emotional filter with which we look at the world, and our intellect, our discretion, our judgment. Why this is important is because this is where language cognition, our understand, our food preferences, all that plays a part. Now this is inherent, ये तो nature में है. This is how we were born. And then of course there is diversity that we acquire in the process of our growing up, in our nurture. It's a weird looking at gender right now, but frankly, there is diversity at race, at caste, at religion. I mean, there is even a diversity in our preferences, right? So there is diversity in the kind of food we eat, there's diversity in our education, there is diversity in the languages we speak, there is diversity in the jobs we do, there's diversity even in the spaces we occupy, whether they're urban spaces or suburban spaces or North India or South India or East or West, or whether you're from a big city or a small city or a village. So, gender is frankly just one aspect that we've chosen to highlight. Diversity exists in multiple levels, and you and I both know of offices where there's a separate, where there are separate dining rooms for vegetarian and non-vegetarian food eaters, where there are separate microwaves for veg food and for non-veg food. We all know of diversity that exists in education, right? So there will be people who come from the same sort of engineering and MBA context who will sit together and bond together. There will be the sense of in group and out group. People who are non MBAs will not belong to that group. We all know of places where language, just because we speak the same language, we will bond together. And because somebody else speaks that language, they are the out group. So it's us versus them, me versus you, in groups and out groups. And this again is basic human nature. Frankly, if we weren't discussing gender, we would have been discussing some other aspect of diversity. So, as human beings, we look to stand out. And by the way, this is, in fact, there was a study done by Yale where they actually started the study on the with the hypothesis that the difference between animals and humans is that animals seek to belong. Animals seek for homogeneity and belonging to one group, whereas human beings seek to stand out. And therefore, this difference between me versus you, my identity is so important. So, gender is just one aspect of my identity. Now, I have a choice, Shreya, about what I choose to be my definition of identity. It could be gender, it could be education, it could be race, religion, language, food, whatever it is. That's a choice I make. And then, basis that one aspect of my identity, I seek my community. I seek my in group. So, and then I create groups, and then that's how it becomes from me versus you. We move to us versus them. And then we figure out what aspect is it of diversity that is a calling out to my identity and validating it, and therefore why I need to have a movement or expression around it. So honestly, gender as an aspect of diversity, I, I understand why it's the most obvious one because it is 50% of the population or thereabouts. So I understand that it's the biggest expression of diversity. But honestly, we could choose any expression and we would be diverse because we are each our own human beings. We are all diverse. We've just chosen to highlight gender. And that's how our mythology, in fact, has also represented it. That's how our scriptures have spoken about it. That is how our itihasa has spoken about it.
So rightly put, Eka, when you say that we seek to stand out and be acknowledged, be respected, but that also means that diversity becomes a bigger challenge for organizations. So, are there any specific strategies or practices drawing from mythological narratives that leaders can adopt to create a more inclusive workplace, given that we are talking about, diversity at so many levels?
That is such a beautiful question, Shreya, because uh, in the context of everything that's happening around us right now, and last month we just had we just did the pran pratishtha of Ram Lala at Ayodhya. I must actually go back to the Ramayana because nowhere in itihasa or epic sagas or literature across the world has there been a leader more inclusive than than Sri Ram, right? And I have always loved to go back to that literature because for me, when I look at Bhagwan Sri Ram, uh, and there are various aspects of looking at him. Of course, he's my God, he's my faith, he's my Aradhya, he is the Maryada Purushottam. But far more important than that, and when I look at him in the leadership construct, he's a leader. He's a leader who fought a war in an alien nation where with an army that was the most heterogeneous, diverse army that one could have ever seen. And right from the beginning, right? So when you look at Sri Ram's incidents, even through the 14-year journey, there was his warmth towards Shabri. There was this warmth that he had towards Kevat, who was the boatman. There was warmth that as he traveled across those 14 years, he just embraced everyone, no, Shreya? So whether it was the Vanar and Hanuman and Sugriv and Bali, whether it was Jatayu, who was a vulture actually, whether it was Jamvan, who was a reach, whether it was Nala and Neel, who were yakshas, whether it was Vibhishan, who was indeed the Rakshas, or even if you look at those little squirrels that helped him come together, even a little Gilehri, and the reason that uh, and that's as diverse as it gets since we were talking about diversity and we were talking about leadership. But when you read whether it's Valmiki's Ramayana or whether you read the Ramcharitamanas, you realize that in every one of these, it is Ram's respect for the person that they are beyond the race, tribe, caste, religion that they represent. And that is what makes Ram a great leader. And since we spoke earlier, Shreya, about this whole idea of me versus you, us versus them, in groups and out groups, you realize that a true leader emerges only when they are able to look beyond these unifiers and dividers of gender, race, religion, caste, education, economic status, language, food preferences, region that they come from. When you're able to look beyond it and actually engage with the other person on who they really are. So, Shreya, you and I can have a conversation where you and I talk to each other as women, or we can have a conversation, or we can talk to each other as mothers, or we can talk to each other as corporate women, or Shreya, you and I can talk to each other just as human beings. And that's why when I spoke earlier about diversity and the identities that we occupy, this becomes a conversation of what is the identity that you're holding dear, that I'm holding dear. And therefore, when I look at lessons from Sri Ram, in fact, you know, the appeal of Sri Ram and of Ramayana is so vast and so timeless and frankly so spaceless because he's a human and he looks at everybody as a human being. Do you know that somewhere within each of us as human beings, that's also probably the ideal we aspire to. And therefore, he is the Maryada Purushottam. He is the ultimate leader. He is the perfect representation of who Maryada. They don't say, nobody's saying Mard there. Nobody says that he's the man. You say he is the Purush. And Purush, by the way, is not gender specific, but it is about Purushartha, about somebody who upholds the ideals of Maryada, of humankind at large. So much so that the Ramayana, without Bhagwan Sri Ram having ever traveled to anywhere beyond Ayodhya and beyond the boundaries of the Indian subcontinent, the Ramayans are actually traveled across geographies. Indonesia has a Ramayan. The entire culture of Bali is Bali as an island. So Bali as an island, by the way, derives from Bali as in Sugriv and Bali. Uh, the whole culture is based on Ramayana, whether it's Indonesia, whether it's Thailand, whether it's Cambodia. In fact, so much so that in Thailand, and here's an interesting trivia for you. In Thailand, the kings of Thailand are actually called Rama 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We are today in the reign of Rama 15. And the old capital of Thailand was actually called Ayodhya, which is their take on Ayodhya. So why would a country do that if it was not for the fact that they aspire to be Ram? And the reason that you aspire to be Ram is because he was just so inclusive. He was, matlab, the word that we use is pratinidhitva. And the fact that he did not distinguish between people on the basis of any of these markers of diversity, but related to people as a human to a human. And this is true, by the way, to me, that's the biggest lessons that leaders can take on, whether it's gender or it is education or it is region, race, religion, it doesn't matter. If we can relate to each other one to the other just as the human beings that we are, we would make for immensely powerful leaders.
Like, I'm trying to absorb the insights that you shared, and I'm just thinking now how relevant it is to actually mark the International Women's Day, especially probably in Indian context.
This, Shreya, is a tricky one because it is the International Women's Day. But you know what, Shreya? In India, we have always celebrated diversity of all sorts. We've celebrated women in all forms. In fact, do you know that India is actually the world's largest living feminine cult? And we have two 9-day festivals in 1 year that are dedicated to
True.
women and celebration of the feminine divinity. And by the way, it is celebrated by men, women, North India, South India, East India, West India alike, right? So whether it's Durga Puja in and Durga Puja and Navratri in October, or it's the Navratri in April. So we've celebrated, and I'm just talking about gender. Frankly, we've celebrated diversity of all sorts. We do Ganpati. Ganpati is dedicated to an elephant headed god. We do Naga Panchami, which is dedicated to the Naga, to the cobra, to the snake. We do Shivaratri. I mean, Shivaratri, the Shiva Tattva is a completely inclusive Tattva. Shiva
Hmm.
Tattva, Shiva himself and the Shiva Tattva did not distinguish forget between man and woman and animal and plant or animal and human. The Shiva Tattva doesn't distinguish between the dead and the living. So we've celebrated diversity in all its form. Holi, what we best know for, the festival of colors and bringing in spring, the holy story actually has in it a child. So look at the diversity in it. There's a child, which is Dhruva Balak. The child has a father, and the father is Hiranyakashyap, who is a demon. The villain of the story is actually a lady, which is Holika, who is Hiranyakashyap's sister. And then the avatar in the holy story is Narasimha avatar, who's half man, half lion. Um, and the whole principle of the festival is that the boon that Hiranyakashyap had is that I should not be killed by a man or a woman, not at dawn, not at dusk, not in day and not in light, not inside, not outside. So it just takes the concept of diversity and in groups to a different level and blows them completely out of thin air, right? So we've celebrated diversity always. We continue to do it. We celebrate diversity of gender. We celebrate diversity of species. We celebrate diversity of uh, actually all kinds of race, of religion, of harmony. So I don't know why we've been so stuck up on an International Women's Day. In fact, I think it would be so wonderful if we can, like I said, celebrate each day as just being the best yourself day. And it doesn't matter, like I said, what your race, religion, gender, age, nothing should matter, no? And we do it already. We are already celebrating everything. So International Women's Day, I understand it's a fad. It's our joy of the moment, and of course we must celebrate women. But do we need to do that A on a specific day? B, do we need to do that in India where we already have such a wide and diverse and heterogeneous culture of celebrating women, of men, of gods, of everything already there? And I'm just wondering if we really need an International Women's Day, or should we just replace it as being your best yourself every single day?
I love that thought, being your best day. So we
Being
should propose
human.
this one.
Not even being human, actually being yourself. I like the idea of being yourself.
Being yourself,
Why,
yeah.
why should it be about humans alone?
So, with this being yourself powerful thought, my last question to you is that since we have spoken so much about mythology and you have shared amazing stories, who is your favorite female character from mythology?
Yeah, my name is Eika. I'm married into the Bengali community. And Eka, by the way, is the first name of goddess Durga.
Hmm.
So she's clearly my favorite. I also love the expressions she has, the range of expressions she has, which we celebrate across the Navratri festival, from being the innocent child daughter Shailaputri to becoming that to being the mother, to being the student Brahmacharini, the mother Skandamata, the creator Kushmanda. Just look at that expression, and from there to being, raising a warrior, the Katyayani, and then Skandamata and Katyayani, and then the warrior herself, to the point, and when she's a warrior where she will destruct completely and be the Kalaratri. And once destruction has happened, she will also bring in the peace, the knowledge, the learnings of Mahagauri and gift them to the world with Siddhi Dayatri. So to me, Durga Shakti is that one expression that's all encompassing. And
Mm.
while she may be my female heroine, I think again, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether she's just Shakti, right? She is, she's not male or female. She's just beyond it. Adi
Yes.
Shakti at the time of birth is Eka. So, well, she's my favorite.
Lovely.
Um, but even as I'm going deeper into this and studying a lot about the whole feminine divinity aspect, in fact, I have a book that's coming out, and yes, here's a plug. We have a book coming out on the Panchakanya,
Mm-hmm.
and why I love the Panchakanya. So there are these five women, and we don't have time to go into their stories now, but do buy the book. There are these five women. The shloka says Ahalya, Tara, Kunti, Draupadi, Mandodari, Tatha Panchakanya Smaranaya Nityam Mahapataka Nashaka. What it basically says is that there are these five women who are the Panchakanya, and if you remember them, if you meditate on them every single day, you can avoid serious disaster and trouble. Mahapataka Nashaka. What's interesting is that these five women are called the Panchakanya. Now, Kanya literally translated means the innocent virgin, but not only are the five of them, frankly, they're all married women, and they've actually known more than a single relationship. So the aspect with which why I love these heroines, um, is because the reason they're called Kanya Shreya is because they are unviolated. The
Mm-hmm.
Kanya is unviolated. The whole idea of Vestal virgins, right? Where the whole idea is that um, you have you have made your choices and you will accept their consequences. So, in fact, the three aspects with which we are discussing these five heroines, three of them are from the Ramayana, which is Ahalya, Tara, and Mandodari. And so Ahalya was Sage Gautam's wife, Tara was Bali and Sugriv's wife, Mandodari was Ravan's wife, and then became Vibhishan's wife. And the other two are, of course, Kunti and Draupadi, very well known from the Mahabharata. There are three aspects that we actually want to put out on the world stage, and maybe it's like we said, the Indian resurgence and the narrative that needs to find its space, where we are saying one, while these stories are ancient stories, they are timeless themes, they're human themes. Two, while they sound like stories told from the female voice, they're actually genderless, they're gender neutral themes. They could be anybody's theme. And three, while on the surface they look like social injustice and abla nari themes, actually they're themes of karma, of action and consequence, of choices, and of our own agency. So yeah, well, that's my other favorite female set of characters from our scripture.
Amazing. I think you do full justice to your name, Eka. It was lovely having this conversation. Best wishes for Panchakanya. I loved 52 Red Pills and I totally look forward to this one. Thanks for giving us a sneak peek into this ancient treasure of wisdom. See, stories certainly have a lot of stickiness, and I'm sure our listeners will be reminded of your anecdotes while dealing with the real life situations at home or workplace. If you would like to dive deeper into these ideas with Eka, reach out to the Outstanding Speakers Bureau. See you soon on our next episode in the IWD Special Edition. This is your host, Shreya, signing off.